Hi, folks. It's time for today's Unclear on the Concept clip.
You listen to me first.
Well, that went pretty good, I think.
Honestly, that's just Monday morning energy at some places.
Oh, my goodness. I hope not for all places. Oh,
Once I saw you argue with an office printer.
that printer started it.
Let's roll the intro.
Indeed. Here we go.
Welcome to The Professor is Live with Mark Salisbury, Professor of Computer Science at the University of St. Thomas. In each lively 25-minute episode, Mark and producer Rikko Smart dive into topics shaping our world, featuring expert interviews and engaging live audience participation. Discover groundbreaking ideas for the future and timeless wisdom you can't afford to forget, all infused with humor and charm. Leave every episode feeling inspired, informed, and optimistic about what lies ahead. For more bragging about this show, go to theprofessorislive.com.
Every time I hear that intro, I get really inspired.
Well, that makes one of us.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I'm Mark Salisbury, and this is The Professor is Live. And we're here with our producer. That's Rikko down in the corner. He keeps everything rolling.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can. Loud and clear. And today, Rikko, we're talking about a powerful idea that comes from Psychology Today, right? And it's an article about deep listening. And so the idea is that they talk about in this article a study where participants learn to listen with empathy, manage their own biases, and stay engaged even when they're in disagreement. And those who went through the training, to be in the treatment group, they ended up feeling more connected, more self-aware, and more open to change. Imagine that, people actually listening to one another.
Revolutionary. Next, scientists will discover that sleep makes us less tired.
Indeed. And they actually have. I don't know if you remember this, and our audience remembers this, we did a show on that. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about deep listening skills as described in this article in Psychology Today. And to explore this idea of deep listening in real life, we invited Pastor Dan Doerrer, who recently found himself at the center of a very public, very difficult community moment and accidentally walked straight into deep listening boot camp. Let's bring him in and hear what Pastor Dan Doerrer, has to say. Welcome, Pastor Dan, to The Professor is Live.
Good to be here, Mark. Thanks.
Well, as you know, this episode is about an article that appeared in Psychology Today, and it was called Deep Listening, a Missing Key to Building Divides, or I should say bridging divides. And it described a study where half the people received a 3-week training program where they practiced listening with empathy and managing their own biases and staying engaged even when they strongly disagreed with someone. The other half served as a control group, receiving no training. Now, the really interesting thing about this is the results of this study were really astonishing. People who had the training felt more connected in their conversation to the person they're talking with. They gained a lot more self-insight, and they began being more open to really an attitude change. So Pastor Dan, you have had a personal experience with these findings, and can you tell us what you've learned?
Well, Mark, actually, yeah. Uh, you know, at first blush, I'd look at a study like this and a training, and I'd be skeptical. Um, but what so intrigues me about this study and the article that we're talking about is just about a month or so ago, I stumbled into an experience that sort of demonstrated the insight and inspiration behind this deep listening training. I work at a church that scheduled a town hall meeting for our local representatives, or the people who represent our neighborhoods. Our U.S. representative was there, our Minnesota representative, our county commissioner, and our mayor. In fact, it was the mayor who originally suggested us as a venue for this town hall meeting. Well, let me put it this way. We have a somewhat controversial U.S. representative, and it just so happened that this representative was in the news in a big way just a few days before our town hall meeting. And I talked with leaders, council members, and some had thought we need to cancel this. This is too. But we decided together that it would be inserting ourselves, our church, in a story, and it was it just wasn't called for, and so and we knew that a town hall meeting is a place where folks should speak up and be in dialogue and challenge our officials. And well, it didn't go over well, meaning that video clips from that town hall meeting were shared on the internet and brought a lot of attention to our church, phone calls and emails.
Okay. And you're the point man on this, of course.
Sure. And it's my role to be, to be the ambassador, and to speak. And I think in the midst of all that, I felt I owed it to the congregation, to the people in the community to call people back who leave their phone numbers and reply to emails. Now, I had sent out a communication to the people in our church and explaining all that happened and providing context. And I thought that anyone who's curious, I would share that with them as well. Yeah. And believe me, as I was returning phone calls and talking to people, it was really unsettling to me. But it was in being that point person and listening to folks and giving them the opportunity to convey to me their reaction to what took place, really kind of thrust me into a situation where I needed to listen to folks. Because otherwise, and I found in some of those conversations, if I was too quick to paint a picture and to give a context, it felt like I was being defensive and dismissing their concerns. But frankly, I learned just from those numerous conversations that if I let someone convey to me why they reacted and why they emailed me or why they called me, I was much better able to convey where we had made choices and how we made choices, and in a way, when looking at the article that you shared today, in hindsight, I think I sort of went through the deep listening training by accident, and I'm so intrigued by it that we're embracing it in our congregation.
Well, trial by fire, I think, is what you did here.
Yeah.
And I think, what we had talked about off camera a little bit is that you realized this is what you were doing in this, and
By accident.
and you went right into this, and we call it different things. We call it deep listening in this article in Psychology Today. And sometimes people just say really listening, right?
Yeah.
That you're actually making an effort. And I think that's what this is really about.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe just talking about it as a skill, that it's something that we're intentional about improving. I mean, just calling it a skill allows us to think about, I want to be better at truly listening or deep listening. And it takes some intentionality, and some practice, and just being mindful that it's a skill that can be developed. And actually, Mark, when I think about it, it's maybe it's a lost skill, a lost art. Now, I know that there's been divisiveness and there's been polarization throughout the decades. We need not look too far to see that. But maybe it's something that we need a reminder of in every age and in every society and in every situation. So I'm sold on it.
Yeah. And so sold, I understand you're actually thinking about doing something about it and using it. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there are, I also think that human relationships and being there for each other and truly listening is a deeply biblical value and conviction. And it is something that we need to be about. And I guess in a way we're wedding the insights and inspirations from the conflict that we experienced around that town hall meeting, and the insights and inspirations from articles like this, that we're going to implement the same sort of training highlighted in that article with different groups in the congregation. And I'm sold on it, and it will be good for us. In fact, my colleague, who's a faith community nurse, received a grant from the organization with which she's associated. Fairview Health, here in Minnesota, has supported our endeavor here. And it all started with some challenging phone calls and some pretty sharply communicated emails. But isn't that what life's all about?
Yeah. And then sometimes we, in a sense, you had the town hall, you had this reaction from people, and a lot of them outside of your own congregation.
Yeah.
And so in some ways you would think, well, this has been a failure. We got people mad at us, but you really found the silver lining in this. I mean, you really given this what we would think of as a negative kind of experience at first, when you actually sat back and reflected on it and thought, wow, this is something that's really important, not only for your congregation, but for all of us.
Well, and I think that insight is kind of at the core of these deep listening skills, in that if we are intentional about listening, not necessarily, I'd say being open to persuasion, being open to the other person's insights and inspiration, that allows us to confront any life challenge or any disagreement or any strained relationship with humility and openness and integrity, and that is a value and an insight that allows us to in a way shift any setback, conflict, or tension into growth.
Yeah. You know what's I think really interesting is we have all of these new ways to communicate, right? And so, we've got the internet, we've had email for a long time, we've got instant messaging, we have all this, but a lot of times most of us use it as blasting out.
Yeah.
And the thing that we've forgotten, and the thing that's very powerful in today's world, is being able to actually listen and listen intently and on purpose. So.
And I think too, it's a skill that's kind of caught, or meaning if we get that hostile email and choose to pick up the phone and invite conversation and invite more explanation and use the gift of listening in those situations. Others, when encountering that, realize just how valuable it is to pick up the phone and to let folks know I'm here, and I welcome more information and more context and more explanation. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you, Pastor Dan, for being with us today and teaching us an important lesson. So thanks a lot, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, Mark.
I forgot to actually put you down in your producer spot where you were supposed to be at the beginning of the show. This is what happens when you have amateurs up front. I would have thought you would have taken care of this, but I guess that falls on me. Well, we are back. We are back, and here, Rikko, here's some of the big takeaways that I see from our conversation with Pastor Dan Doerrer. And one is that deep listening really is a skill. Right. And it requires intentional practice. And it's not your personality, really. It's not magic. It's something you work at, and consistently and on purpose.
So like going to the gym, but for your ears.
Exactly. Right. So that's the number one thing. And the second takeaway I have is listening creates connection, even in conflict. So Dan returned phone calls and emails from upset community members, and through simply listening, he softened tension and built understanding.
So basically, he turned a bunch of angry phone calls into therapy sessions.
He did indeed, and what a job he did. And the third takeaway I have with this is humility opens the door to understanding. So being open to persuasion doesn't mean losing yourself. It means respecting the possibility that someone else has insight that you don't.
Well, exactly. Sometimes the other person has the map and you're just wandering around with the snacks. But remember, not all those who wander are lost.
I'm not sure I followed that, and I'm going to have to ask you that off camera. But that's just me. I'm a little slow at times. So that brings us to the fourth one. The fourth takeaway is that negative experiences can blossom into positive growth. And a heated town hall, public criticism, and viral clips become an opportunity for the congregation to implement deep listening training. Wow.
Classic plot twist. We thought everything was on fire. Turns out it was just a spark of wisdom.
There it is, right? And he gleaned it. That was just amazing. And so they're going to be implementing this training in their congregation around deep listening. So that's just fantastic. So that brings us to our fifth and final takeaway that I found, and that is listening is a lost art that we must reclaim. Despite having more communication tools than ever, we seem to do less and less real listening.
Right? Like people communicate like they're firing T-shirt cannons at each other.
Indeed, it does seem like that, right? T-shirt cannons. That's just a great way of putting it. Okay, folks, this wraps up today's episode. A big thank you goes out to Pastor Dan Doerrer for sharing his insights and his story.
And thank you, Mark, for listening deeply. Well, at least 45% of the time now?
I'm sorry, Rikko, I drifted off there. Did you say something? All right. Well, anyway, let's go past that. And just remind our audience that you can find more episodes and updates at theprofessorislive.com, or follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform. So, see you next time on The Professor is Live.
And remember, keep listening if you don't want to miss any of this clever wisdom.
Indeed, folks. See you next time.
The Professor is Live. Hosted by Mark Salisbury and produced by Rikko Smart. We go live on LinkedIn, then bring the conversation straight to you as a podcast. Catch us on YouTube or Spotify for full video episodes. Or listen anytime on your favorite podcast platform. Want the inside scoop on previous shows or a chance to bring The Professor is Live to your own event? Then head to theprofessorislive.com today. The Professor is Live with Mark Salisbury, inspiring curiosity, laughter, and learning every week. Copyright 2025. The Professor is Live with Mark Salisbury.